Thank you, Acting Speaker, and I rise today to speak on the 000 Victoria Bill 2023. And I'd firstly like to acknowledge the work of the Minister for Emergency Services in the other House. And of course, all of our emergency services personnel and our emergency services telecommunication authorities, dispatchers and call takers for the great work that they do. They are our 000 heroes, and as I say, currently we're aware of the bushfires and then the floods, and I thank them for all their efforts, in particular during this week. But I do want to start by referring to a couple of things that the member for Polwarth raised, and he raised 2 deaths recently. And I will say, as an ex-paramedic, as an ex-secretary of the Ambulance Union for 23 years, dealing with all of these issues, overseeing enterprise bargaining agreements at ESTA that have multi-union agreements that are already in place. They had discussions and they worked through issues during the pandemic, but of course that side of the parliament wouldn't understand working with unions and working with emergency service workers, because all you wanted to do was go to war with them. But that's okay. We could put up with that. But that's why you're sitting over there. Remember the writing on the trucks? Got up all your noses, didn't it, in 2014? Remember the writing on the trucks? Yeah, I'm sure you do. That's why you're over there, and that's why you'll stay there. I've got to say, I've been involved in this system for the last 30 years.
The member for Polwarth on a point of order.
I'll just point out to the member for Melton on relevance that he might want to check what he just said, because the data clearly proves that his multi-member agreements didn't actually deliver what they were supposed to deliver.
That is not a point of order. The member for Melton to continue.
I'm not even going to respond to that, because I had experience for 23 years in dealing with this service and dealing with multi-union agreements that were covering all of the employees, involving the unions that you referred to. So that's okay. But over my last 30 years before I entered this parliament, there's been experiences, unfortunately, of many deaths because of system failures. And I'll remind you that your side of politics privatised this system back in the Kennett.
The member for Melton to address through the chair. Is that what the point of order was going to be, member for Nepean?
Speaker, I was going to make that point of order. Reflections on the chair, not appreciated, I'm sure.
Thank you. You have the call, member for Melton.
Sorry, Acting Speaker. I just remind the opposition that they privatised the system back in the 90s under the Kennett government to an American company called Intergraph, and it was it was just a disaster, and there was death after death after death. Multiple coroner's court cases that I was involved in, and here they are trying to wave in our face this issue of people dying, and yet they forget that era of the Kennett government privatising the system, and they also forget their term in office between 2010 and 14, where people also died under your watch and your government watch in that period. And what did you do to ESTA during that period? Did you support them? Oh, sorry, I apologise.
Member for Polwarth on a point of order.
I thought you might have guessed, Acting Speaker. It's relevant. Talking about what happened 30 years ago is not relevant. This term of government has been the focus of the wide-ranging debate. I'm happy for the member to go back with his data, 8 or 10 years, that's fine. But I think stretching back 30 years have to be ruled out of order for lack of relevance.
Thank you, member for Polwarth. I'll make the rulings. And I would suggest in this case that I've given you plenty of latitude in your contribution, and we'll respect that in other members as well. I'll remind every member to keep to the bill, though.
Thank you, Acting Speaker. There's just one other point I wanted to refer to that the member for Polwarth had raised, and that was about the data. And I should remind the member for Polwarth that in their term of office in 2010-14, they refused to release data. And in fact, I think they went to court to try and stop the opposition getting access to data. So that's how much I think of data. But anyway, I'll move on. This bill acts on the key recommendations from 4 independent reviews into Emergency Services Telecommunication Authority by bringing our emergency dispatch service closer to government and implementing organisational change, and it will repeal the current Emergency Services Telecommunications Authority Act 2014. It disbands ESTA and enact a new statutory authority called 000 Victoria. It marks a new era of Victoria's emergency service called Taking and Dispatch Service. and it ensures that Victorians can continue to have confidence, and they do have confidence, that when they call 000, they will get the help that they need when they need it. And I should say that any death that occurs in a systemic issue or failure affects not only the families, but it affects emergency service workers, including the call takers and dispatchers, including the responders, regardless of what service they work for, whether it's police, fire, ambulance, VICSES, whoever it is. Let me tell you, I've dealt with this for 23 years as the Secretary of the Union, trying to support my members, previous members, that had to respond to cases where they thought they could save someone and unfortunately they didn't get to them in time. And it's not a nice feeling. I've done it myself as a paramedic, and you live with that for the rest of your life. You have it in the back of your head where it occasionally flicks up again for whatever reason to remind you. And I talk about people that die that are young, that are babies, that are older, you know, that people should have had 20, 30, 40, 50 years ahead of them. And you live with that until, you know, we pass away. So it's an amazing feeling and it's a terrible experience. And you wouldn't wish that on anyone. And I feel sorry for the families, and I extend my condolences to families that have been affected by this. But I also send my respects to emergency service workers for what they do. And again, you know, I have to say that I've seen many changes in this system, and I will go back over the history of this dispatch centre, and I do refer back to the Kennett era, who did privatise it out to an American company. And it led to, as I said before, many disastrous outcomes. And then, of course, you know, we moved to a statutory agency after a royal commission, after the Bracks government was elected, and then the statutory agency that was created back in 2002, and then Esther evolved out of that in 2004. And of course, out of that royal commission, one of the senior recommendations that come out of that was that we should never privatise out emergency service communications. All right? And that's why this new statutory body was created. And I can rattle off examples of what occurred when it was privatised. But I'm not going to do... I'm not... well, do you want me to rattle them off? No, I won't. I won't, because, you know, it'd be like playing tennis with your mate over behind you, and I could hit one back over the net, and you might try and hit one back. But that doesn't resolve anything. That doesn't resolve anything. Let's face facts. Let's face facts. You know, let's face facts. Anyway, Acting Speaker, on this side of the House, we do listen to the research and we listen to the experts and we read the reports, and this is why the Allan Labor government is introducing this 000 Victoria service. And the Emergency Services Telecommunication Authority Capability and Services Review made 20 recommendations to transform Esther's governance. The call taking and dispatch service, the technology and managed services, the intelligence services and performance standards, and to address systemic issues within this organisation. Of course, the IGEM did a review, and I send my respects to Tony Pearce. Him and I worked together on the road as paramedics back in the 80s and 90s in the western suburbs, and he's a great fellow, and I thank him for all the work that he does. And clearly his review has come up with a number of recommendations and a number of findings, and that has all been taken into account with this new service. And of course we look forward to the outcomes of this new service. I know I've only got a short time left, but I do want to say in that short time left, we need to support the system, the new system. We need to support the workers in that system and what they do. And they give their all on a day-by-day basis. And we will grow the system and improve the system. But I've got to say, Victorians need to take some responsibility also. And there was an article in the Sunday Age last Sunday on the 1st of October about overhaul urges, 000 calls come in for sore ears and constipation. And what we see on a day-by-day basis, right, where there are 7,000 cases or calls taken, what we see is, in particular in ambulance, where there's about 1,000 calls per day, 300 of those calls per day are non-urgent cases that get an urgent response. So they're tying up ambulance crews to respond to. It is not good enough, and Victorians have to help this system work properly. This is an important bill, and I commend this bill to the House.